So that's spectacular for the age of this kit. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'm going to be looking at a new old kit. So what's that? That's the re-release of the Tyrrell P34 six-wheeler. This time, well, it's 1/20 scale, this time in the Japanese Grand Prix version from 1976. So it's actually a really old kit, but it was a magnificent kit when it was first released. So Tamiya have rejigged it a little bit by adding actually quite an extensive lot of photo-etch, and then also some new thin Cartograph decals, which are a big contrast to the thick Tamiya ones that they used to have. Let's have a closer look at the box itself. All right, so there's the Tyrrell. From the box, it's difficult to see what the differences are, but it's quite significant. So we've got different decals here. We've got Tyrrell, which is actually written in hiragana for the Japanese Grand Prix. Also, the airbox cover is different, and the rear wing is different. It has much larger side plates than the other kit. And those parts are still in here, so we'll be able to see those. So let's have a closer look inside. Now, if you didn't know, if you go to the Tamiya headquarters and the museum in Japan, in Shizuoka, you actually see a Tyrrell because Tamiya own a Tyrrell, and it's on display. All right, there we go. We've got a box full of bits, okay? We have I guess it's pretty common. Tamiya with the F1 cars, they do mold them in the basic color of the body. And then you have, it's basically three colors they mold in. So you've got the body color, and then we've also got the black, which is a lot of the suspension, I guess, components. And there's also a silver, which is that one, which is the engine components. But let's look at each bag at a time. So I'll put this aside. Now, what do we have in this bag here? Okay, so we've got multiple parts for the body itself, probably lower chassis and such. All right, so we've got the tires. These are the front tires, little tiny things. And this is, if you've built F1 kits before, you'll be familiar with the polycaps. And this is an early kit where the polycaps are actually molded in with the tires. And you've got tiny tires here, 4 of them, of course. And then there's always that line, the mold line down the center. And I've seen a lot of kits that are built and they leave that mold line in the center. But personally, I prefer it without that, and it's quite easily removed. You just rub this on some sandpaper, so 240 grit, and just rub it down until you lose that center ridge, and then the whole lot gets scuffed up and it makes it look much more realistic, as if the tires have been used. Okay, so they're the front tires. And then let's look at some of this bodywork. Okay, so you've got sections of the monocoque here. Okay, you've got the front wing, which is attached to the framework. Got some side pods attached there as well. This would be where the fuel tank would live. Okay, so it's sort of empty. You've got sections of the wing. So this is the original wing, which has got the small side, what do you call them again? Side panels, I guess. And then you've got your main aerofoils there. With this sprue, we have lower part of the chassis. You've got your seat and a section where it just surrounds the rollover hoop. And then you got your front cowling. So you've got the clear windows in the sides here, and you've got the aerodynamic mirror parts there as well. Now what I might do is we'll have a closer look at, I guess we'll look at this one. Let's zoom in on this. And I'll show you what the detail is like on this early kit. Okay, so this would have been state of the art when it was released. Now, as you look at it with the reflections, you can see there's a little bit of shrinkage, I guess. It's unevenness you see on the surface. So that'll benefit from a little bit of primer and sanding. You may need to fill in some parts here. But overall, the detail is very good. This is a kit that dates back to the late 1970s. And this is when a lot of these were hand polished. So you're not going to get absolute smooth finish, but I mean with a little bit of care, just sand that down, you'll be able to get that into a really nice reflective and flat surface. But all the basics are there, even with this old kit. You see how there's very little flash. Actually, where I'm looking, you can't see any flash at all. You don't really need to clean anything up. Sounds like we've got a little bit of emergency happening outside. So there's a few sink marks you'll see here. But I mean, you'll see that sort of thing in modern kits as well. As anywhere where there's a different thickness, as the plastic cools, it'll shrink. And that's because we've got this locator here. But all in all, really good. Okay, so there's your body parts, they're the blue parts. Let's move on to the black parts. Okay, so we've got bag here and 2 sprue. So this is all the suspension type components, and we have the wheels as well. So let's have a closer look at each one in closer detail. Right, so here's the wheels. They're the rear wheels, 2-piece. See how they're coned? There's the other side here. Get your steering wheel. That's the back. Here's the front. Looks like an engine mount here. And then we've got the radiators. You see how they have the texture on them? So they were really good at the time. But with this set, we actually get photo-etch details to cover that to get even further detail. There's a rear upright with the drive shaft, universal drive shafts. Some more suspension components. You've got the disc brakes there with the calipers. Get your pedals. Some push rods. Parts of the engine. Got the heads there. Now they'll have the engine manufacturing. You just see that molded in. So that's spectacular for the age of this kit. More uprights, you got shocks. Okay, so that's one set of black, and now we move on to the other one. So this one has, there's the front wheels, your front suspension arms. These are possibly rear arms. I have to check the manual to have a closer look at those. Lots of rod bits all over the place. And there you got your rollover hoops. Little boxes for instruments. Probably some shock rods or steering rods. Sway bar. And then some caps. And there you got your disc brakes as well. Where were they? There you go. Get your front disc brakes, 4 disc brakes. So 1 per wheel, and then your little tiny shocks there too. Okay, now let's look at this one here. We've got some chrome bits. So you've got some rollover hoops in here. So I'm not sure why there's a couple of rollover hoops. But here we go, we've got some chrome. And see how shiny the chrome is. Okay, so you get your rear vision mirrors, they've been chromed. See them glistening. You got some small fine parts too, so these could be supports for the wings as well. And then these are your trumpets for the engine, the intake trumpets. Okay, nicely done. Right, from there we've got a driver. Driver's molded in white, so white on white might not be the easiest thing to see here, but we'll try and get some good focused. Here we go. So you can see how sharp the details are on just his harness there. There you go, you get the shadows there coming through now, a bit easier to see. Now this kit also comes with seat belts in fabric form, so you don't have to use the driver. You can have them on, just sitting in the seat. There's his helmet in 2 pieces. And his arms. You notice that the head's been short molded here, which can happen. Now something like that wouldn't bother me really, because I'll just fill that in and get that on its way. But then again, a lot of people may not use this. It's actually a really simple fix. Of course you can claim that and get a replacement part, but as a model myself, I'll just deal with it. Okay, so that's the driver figure. And then we've got this bag here. This has got the rear tires, super fat, and then it's got some vinyl in there as well. So we've got some vinyl tubing, add extra details to the engine. We've got some more polycaps, so these are actual polycaps that are modern style. So I guess you can use those instead of the ones that were molded on with the tires before. Then you can see how fat these rear tires are. Very nice. Okay. What have we got now? Now the final piece of plastic in here. Whoops. Let's zoom that out a bit. This is the silver molded parts, which are the engine parts. And pretty much, it's mainly engine parts on this. Okay, so you've got exhausts. There's a trumpet mounts there. These are probably injectors, I guess. Ends of the exhausts. You've got the sides of the engine casing, the gearbox. Got the sides of the engine, you see the V there. And then over here there's the top of the casing. So this is the 8 points there for the V8. And then some side panels. Then over here we've got a few other bits and pieces. Starter motor, perhaps pumps and things. Okay, so there's all your plastic parts. Now, this is where we start getting into the extra bits that they've supplied. And so, here's the decals. These are the decals which are printed by Cartograph. Let's see if I can get that a bit sharper. There we go. May not be able to see there. I'm not going to open these up because I don't want to spoil any of these decals. But Cartograph are quite famous for having very sharp printing. You can see how the fluoro is actually really bright. It's probably not a true fluoro because I wouldn't imagine they use fluoro, but it's a very, very bright yellow. Then you've got the helmet decals. And then under here will be the tire decals. So you can't actually see this because they flip them around so they don't get damaged. Okay, so these are new Cartograph decals. And then this is a bit of magic. This is the huge photo-etch set. Okay, let's have a closer look. So they've included a lot of bits in here. Now where I've focused in on, this is quite a different part. This is the airbox. That's very different to any of the parts which are on the other kits. And then this is actually a side panel of the wing from the original. And these are the huge side panels for the Japanese version. So they actually give you two wings in photo-etch for this, and you can easily swap them in and out. Now you've got these really complex, I guess, wing mount. So you need to fold that up into a box section. But as you can imagine, with really thin photo-etch, you get a really scale appearance. These are the disc brake covers, so you can actually see the ventilating lines on them. So that's added detail. And then these are the meshes I was talking about earlier for the radiators. Super fine. Big chunky bits, so they're further for the rear wing. You've got some more disc brakes here. This is for the rear, so both sides of the brakes. There's also seat belt buckles. And then this is the lower apron for the front wing. And then you have all these vanes there as well. So really massive piece of photo-etch. You can see by the size of my hands, there's a huge sheet. What else have we got there? Okay, so let's put that aside. Now there were some, where were the seat belts? Oh, there's the seat belts, I missed those. So if you built Tamiya kits before, these were only included in some of the more modern 12 scale kits. They started doing these for the 20th scale reissues as well. So very nicely printed, and they're on a textured surface, so fabric look. Okay, let's get into the manual. All right, so we'll be able to see all the differences here. So pretty standard Tamiya manual. You've got a history there in multiple languages. And then as we flip it open, I have to zoom that out a bit. There we go. Let's move some of this out of the way. All right, so this is pretty standard if you built Tamiya kits before. You've got a listing of paints with the Tamiya codes, basic idea of the kind of tools you'll need, and then a few little tips there, particularly for the working with photo-etch. Okay, so when we're building, we start off with, you need to choose which version you want. So there's card number 3 or card number 4. And there's also an indication of the parts that you don't use from the older kit, because you've got updated parts in here. We start off with building the engine. You've got your distributor here. You've got the heads. So as you see the photo-etch, they have the symbol here for the super glue. So you need super glue or cyanoacrylate to be able to glue these parts onto the plastic. Engine goes together. You've got the exhaust, and there's some vinyl tubing there as well. That'll be for the cooling. And then we start working onto the front end. So we've got the brakes, photo-etch on each side of the discs. Actually, that's the rear end. So they're the big brakes. Gearbox going together, rear arms, got your uprights with the drive shafts. And then we've got that whole rear end attached to the engine. We've got some cooling here. So photo-etch covers again for the radiator. And then we start building the front end monocoque. So we've got the rollover hoop at the bottom of the chassis, pedals. And then we've got the engine, which is mounted onto the back of that. And then we start working on the front end. So you've got your little discs, and they've got the photo-etch details there, mounting them onto the suspension frame. Do the same for the other side. And then you've got your lower arms going into place. And then we start mounting those onto the actual monocoque of the chassis. Okay, so you've got two sides of that four-wheeled front end. You've got the radiators with the extra photo-etch detail going onto them. Over here, there's a little indication that the front wing needs a little bit of modification. So you just need to trim those areas to make it this particular version. And then we add in some of the details here for the cockpit. Now, there's a photo-etch little apron there going on the bottom of the wing. And then you've got the seat belts. So these are the fabric seat belts with the photo-etched buckles. They get mounted into the seat. So that's not using the driver figure at all. And then you've got the seat going in with all the instruments. And then this is if you want to use the driver. So these are the instructions for the painting and the assembly. We get into the trumpets here for the engine. And this is where you get into the major parts of the photo-etch. This is the bending of the wing stay, they call it, or the wing mount. So this is for the very large version. So you can see the large panels here. And then you attach that onto the rear of the car. And then as you move on to the other side, there's instructions on how to construct the original style one too. So it's got the small wing plates. And then we've got the cowling with the mirrors going into place, folding of the airbox cover. We've got the wheels going together, so you get your fronts and the rears. They get mounted up, all gets put together, and that's finished. And then here are the instructions for the painting and also for the decals. You got the profiles there. So there you go. So that is my open box review of the really nice, I really like this, of the six-wheeler Tyrrell. This is the P34 six-wheeler from the 1976 Japanese Grand Prix. Lots of photo-etch, lots of really nice Cartograph decals, and it's a winner. Even though it's an old kit, as you've seen, it's an actually really good quality kit. So get into it. So if you liked this video, please give me a like below. And if you like to see more content, please think about subscribing. So thank you very much.